Need a better place to store a lawnmower, garden tools, or most anything? A lean-to roof is a great solution. I'm Maynard with First and Foremost, and today we're going to show you step by step how to build a lean-to against an existing structure. Let's make it happen, Captain. As always, guys, if you'd like to see more DIY projects just like this one, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Now, before you get started on any project, the existing structure needs to be inspected and prepped. Now let's get started. Part of inspecting the building is knowing that the existing structure is level and straight. That's perfectly level on this corner, which is going to be the back end. And on the front side of the lean-to, we're not actually going to extend all the way out to the edge of the garage, not to disturb the existing trees he has on the property. And we're showing a little inconsistency right here on the rib, so we may need to take that into account when we install our ledger boards. We have 6 by 6 by 10 foot pressure treated posts. We're going to have 2 by 8 southern yellow pine for the beam outside to hold the rafters. We'll have 2 by 6 by 12 for those rafters and 2 by 4 by 16 for the purlins. Apart from that, we'll have a couple bricks and blocks for underneath the post and a few bags of concrete to make sure this thing is sturdy and doesn't move. Now that we have our building prepped and inspected, let's get started with the foundation and framing. Maybe cut me a couple of those. No, I think with what I got right here starting out, I should be pretty good. To get started with marking the foundation and holes we're going to dig for the 6 by 6s, we're going to run a string line from the back edge of the shed and extend it out past our build point. Now we're going to do that for 2 reasons. We want to make sure that our line and stake that we install does not interfere where we're actually going to dig, and also to make sure that our new lean-to is perfectly in line and square with the existing structure that we're building against. All right, how do you look right there, Fido? Ahí está. That's good. That's really good. 130. Now on these existing lines, we have our back wall already lined off against the existing structure. Now where our poles are going to go is 11 foot. So we're going to make sure that this line is exactly at 11 foot. Now it's not necessary that it's super perfect at this moment, but what we're trying to do is locate our poles. That way when we have those holes dug, we will be able to set the 6 by 6s perfectly and on measurement. Now after you have the overall dimensions in your string line set, really need to check and make sure that the new structure is perfectly square. So we're going to just pull from the very finished point that we have marked on the building to the cross that our string line has made, and we're 22 feet 11 3/4. Now come right here, Juan, and hold me exactly on that outside corner so we get a true measurement. Hold me on the very corner right here, right where the line crosses. 22 foot 11 3/4 is our measurement over there. Now sometimes, you know, it's better to be lucky than good, but this time we are within a 1/16 of an inch, and that is pretty good for a lean-to. 22 foot 11 7/8. Now we're going to install these brick or block directly to the ground so that our pole is set up a little higher and the concrete will be able to surround the block, brick, and the post all in one and make one adhesive unit. There you go.
Depends on how wet they are.
They are super wet. So we're gonna install 4 braces on each of the 6x6 poles. We're gonna put 2 in opposing directions on the lower portion to start with the measurements and the string lines that we already have set up. And then once we get those nailed on, we will level the post and make sure that they are nice, straight, and plumb. So let's go ahead and nail that right there. I really recommend that you don't wear flip-flops to work. If you're planning on building your lean-to, it's probably a good idea to wear the proper footwear. Flip-flops are not it. Just make sure during your setting pole process that you do not disturb the lines, because those are holding our overall building dimension. So you'll snug this 6x6 up really close to the line. Clávalo. On the outer edge, now let's run a brace from this to there. All right. Okay. Now after we have the lower 2 braces installed, we're going to install these up a little bit higher, but not too high as to where it'll affect our beam install or cutting the notches in the post itself. Vamos a ponerla al árbol mejor. But voy a terminar este lado primero. Dame una pala. Dame esa pala. Okay, so now that we have a very tedious portion of the building done, which is leveling and bracing off the post, we're going to install the concrete around the post and make sure that we fill this hole up to about 6, 7, or 8 inches or so from the top of the ground itself, so that we can pack the air out of this. We're going to do a system of kind of shocking the concrete into one solid ball. So you really want to pack that air, get all the air out of the concrete itself with a flat board or a small piece of 4x4 or something, and we'll let that set overnight before we remove the braces. Just get all that air out and make sure it's solid. You have to prepare for what could happen and not what is at this current moment. And so that's a big point in having the foundation and footings perfectly installed to last for a long time. 9 pies, 9 1/4. So we're going to start our ledger on the red line that we have popped 3 inches underneath the fascia. And we're going to make sure that we break the cut of the ledger board itself on this stud, because we don't have material that spans one solid shot 19'11". We're going to have to break that at some point, and that point needs to be where there's either a structural member or something solid for us to screw to make sure that we have support for that roof, as the ledger is what is going to be receiving the rafters and purlings at the connection point of the existing building. To shed that water off. Well, it's about 7'3.5" right here. Oh yeah. That would not have been pretty. That's a little bit better at least. Now that we have our posts completely cut and our notch ready to receive the beam, I just want to say one little note about how to execute the cut itself. Skill saws and circular saws, being that they have a rounded blade, you do not want to extend the cut or go past the line that you have marked. It's really nice to finish off that cut with a straight reciprocating blade, as to not jeopardize the integrity of the 6x6 post itself. Now that we have our bolts installed on each post and the 2x8s are nailed inside and out, the last step before we measure the rafters is to double check and make sure the 2x8 beam itself is perfectly straight and does not need any braces intermittently between the braces that we already have on the 6x6 posts themselves. So we're going to run a string line a little bit up in the air above the beam, just so it'll give us a visual of how straight that beam actually is. So after putting the string line up, we've noticed that there is a little bit of a bow in between the position of the post. So we're going to install some blocking and a brace at this point as well to kind of push that back in. And when we line up really nice with our string line, we will nail that off to some stakes that we have in the ground, and they will hold that into a straight position for us while we install our rafters. Now that we have the beam lined all up and we're braced off and nice and straight, I'm going to show you an easy way to mark these rafters so we don't have to complicate it with a bunch of mathematics and maybe have an error or two. We're going to actually mark it with what we have. So we're lucky enough to have 2 sets of hands here today, but if you didn't, you could actually just set a nail on the outside of this post here and just give this little 2x6 a rest. But Fido's going to hold the front side up there, flush to the top of the ledger board, and kind of run it to the side of it as to where we'll be able to mark the angle, and it'll make the cut and mark for us. Now on this side, we'll drop it down a little bit there to mark our bird's mouth. Go ahead and mark it right there, Julian. Mark yours as well, Fido. Aquí afuera. Yeah. We'll hold that down until we have approximately 3 or 4 inches of a bird's mouth, and we have a full bearing onto our double beam. But to finish out the bird's mouth cut, and to kind of explain what a bird's mouth is, because it definitely doesn't look like any type of bird's mouth, but that's what we refer to as the point where our plumb cut and our seat cut sit on either a bearing wall, in this case a girder beam or exterior beam. And that is the point at which we will cut a pocket and or mouth out of for it to sit on that structural element. It will also, if we slide our square with the pivot point tight up against the 2x6 and the square perfectly lined with our plumb cut that we made on the outer edge of the 2x8 beam, will give us our angle. We'll finish that cut out, and by knowing that 5 degrees, I will be able to make the angle mark of our tail pattern at the same exact pitch as the bird's mouth. So you can see here he installed 2 or 3 nails. In this case 4 is fine. About 1 inch away from the edge back to make sure you grab enough meat, and also make sure that enough of the nail goes into the ledger board itself, but that'll give us that strength. And as you can see, I can hang on this board at 250 pounds and nothing happens, and it will sustain perfectly. Now that we have our rafters completely installed, we need to install our horizontal runners. And these are going to go on a 2-foot on center layout. We're also going to alternate the brakes as to not create one weak point or pivot point, if you will, if all of these 2x4s are broken on one single joist or rafter. So we'll start the first row from that side, 16 foot, and break it in the center of the rafter and install our finish out. And as we go up to the next line on 2 foot, we'll start our 16-foot piece from this side and break in the center of the second to last rafter and finish out from there. And then the third line will copy the first line, and the fourth line will copy the second line. Okay, tráigame los tres y ponerla aquí. De ahí yo voy a sacar estas. Pero lo que puede hacer is just marcarte en el centro de la rafter right there. Pero aquí. Yep, and jalarla por it. That's it.
Poquito, déjala más.
Ahí está.
Ahí está.
Yeah.
¿Todo bien, papá?
Yep.
Poquito, déjala más.
Ahí está.
Ahí está.
Up at the upper edge of the house, we are going to install these LUS 26Z hangers, and that will carry the load of the rafter up against the ledger. Make sure you fill all of these holes with a 10-penny nail, and that'll carry all the weight we need on the rafter. Now, after you have the hangers on the upper portion near the ledger, we will install an H2.5 AZ that you will be able to install at the 2x8 beam on the exterior portion of the roof, and these attach with 10D nails or screws. We're going to apply 5 gallons of water to each hole to kind of shock that concrete into form, like we kind of touched on earlier. And you may not be able to apply all of the water to the hole in one shot, so you may have to add just a little bit at a time. You can see I left these holes about 8 inches from the top of the ground here, so that left me some room for that water, and we were able to fill that whole 5 gallons in one shot. Welcome back. It's day 2 and our metal has finally delivered. We're going to install the apron, roof, and rake metals. So let's get in and wrap this thing up. Now we need to put a screw in each one of these while we can see these. These should be really good width. I'm hoping that we slide in nice and pretty. Come on up. I'm gonna pass it right to you, Chip. All right, good. For right now, we've got 2 panels just up here. One very important thing is to make sure that the reveal on the end of the overhang here is equal in length, and you can do that by measuring the distance from the metal that we installed right to the end. We're working with a 3-inch reveal right at the moment, and it's looking fairly straight. So we're going to tack off the first sheet, which we already have tacked, in 2 locations, one right here at the bottom and one right there in the top. And we'll do that in the center of the 2x4 that you can kind of see right here, and also this 2x4 here. Now, I'm not going to screw everything off right now, because if we just tack this off, it helps us in 2 ways. If there is an adjustment needed, it's not the end of the world just to pull a couple screws to adjust a little bit. And also, by the time we get to the end and have it tacked off, we can pop a nice pretty line with either blue or orange chalk. Do not use red because it takes forever to come off. But we'll pop with an orange line across here to keep our screws cosmetically looking good and nice and aligned. And one other thing to note, these metal panels come with one side that overlaps onto the previous sheet. The other side has an extra lip on the bottom, and that side needs to be what goes down. So the rib that does not have the extra lip is what actually goes over top of the previous sheet. Well, we can pull that bolt. So we're gonna pop a line right down the edge of this rib right here. Let's go 22 and a half, TJ. And then we're pretty much into the flashing. Measure what you got at the bottom. That was a long build with a lot of details, but I'm proud of what we did. A lean-to shed is a great DIY project and a cost-effective way to add storage space to an existing structure. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if there's a DIY project that you want to see, leave us a comment down below and we'll see if we can make that happen. Until then, y'all have a great day.